For those of you struggling with insomnia, how much are you really sleeping? You'd actually be surprised that you're sleeping a lot more than you think. I'm Dr. Andy Burkowski of Relax Health, and this week's topic is on the concept of sleep state misperception. So I've got these motion sickness glasses here. As you can see, there's no lens. You're actually looking right through the glasses, but the way the glasses work, they change the brain's perception of motion. So you're still seeing the same things, but it's changing your brain's perception. And that's kind of what is happening with the condition of insomnia. Insomnia being difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep through the night. So many people with this condition will think that they're not getting as much sleep as they really are getting. And it can work both ways, because the fact is you actually need to be asleep a very long time to realize that you're asleep, and you have to be awake quite a bit to realize that you woke up. I'll give you an example. You know, the old grandparent sitting on the couch watching TV in the evening, and they doze off, and you say, "Grandma, wake up," and she looks around and said, "I wasn't sleeping. You were sleeping. You dozed off." And you know that old argument. Well, that's because Grandma actually didn't know she had fallen asleep, because she had fallen asleep for just a few seconds or maybe even a minute or two and gone into a light stage of sleep. And the opposite is true when we're awake and we don't realize that, like the average person, their brain actually wakes up 10 or 12 times an hour. But nobody's going to remember waking up 10 or 12 times an hour. But the combination of these two things can create quite a problem for people struggling with insomnia. In a typical sleep clinic, there are so many patients who feel like they're only getting 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep per night when they're actually getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep. And this is shown in these overnight sleep studies. When I used to read these sleep studies, when people would sleep overnight, they'd have these EEGs monitoring their brain waves, and you could actually calculate how much they're asleep. And patients fill out these surveys. They say, "How much do you think you slept?" 1.5 hours. And guess what? They slept 6.5 hours by measuring their brain waves. But their sleep was so disrupted that they weren't really sure they were awake or asleep. Their brain was overactive, and so the brain never really got into a deep stage of sleep, because the brain's always transitioning, and even certain parts of the brain are transitioning from being awake to being asleep. So people with really kind of broken up sleep, people not sleeping well, are going to perceive that they're not getting any sleep. The good news is the body has a safety mechanism to prevent people from sleep depriving themselves. So at some point, the body will just fall asleep. It's been built into our evolution. So as long as you're not physically up running around, keeping yourself awake all night, if you're giving yourself 6, 7 hours of opportunity to sleep, your body will be getting sleep. And the reason this is important to understand and have faith in this is that the worry about getting only 1 or 2 hours of sleep is actually preventing you from getting sleep, because sleep is a deactivated state of the mind. So anything that causes your brain to be overactive and to be worrying about things, even if it's how much sleep you're getting or how good the quality of sleep you're getting, will actually be self-fulfilling. It will deteriorate the quality of your sleep to be worrying about your sleep. So for this one small area, if you feel like you're really only getting 2, 3 hours of sleep, you really need to think about sleep state misperception, that you actually are getting a lot of sleep. So maybe you need to flip the coin and think about how much rest are you getting, because you have no ability to measure your sleep, because when you're asleep, so you can't measure your sleep. And you got to be really, really awake to know that you're actually awake. So because of sleep state misperception, you need to worry less about sleep, have faith that you're getting a lot more sleep than you are. This is how sleeping pills work. In part, sleeping pills decrease awareness. So you're actually not getting any more or any less sleep sometimes when taking a sleeping pill, but you're actually perceiving that you are, because your state of consciousness is lower, so you don't realize how much you are or are not sleeping. You think you're sleeping a lot more than you are, but you might have been not sleeping much more than you were before, in fact, but you just think you do. And that's why sleeping pills often do not work long term, because once that effect wears off, then you're back to where you were, thinking you're not getting enough sleep. So for those of you struggling with insomnia, cognitive and behavioral therapy for insomnia, for chronic insomnia, is the gold standard of treatment, and sleep state misperception is one of the factors involved in the cognitive and behavioral approach to insomnia. As always, this video is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of medicine. For any sleep difficulties, please refer to a licensed medical professional for treatment. And as always, as I like to say, one of the keys to sleeping well is to relax.